Well, welcome to the UK.
Thank you.
Just for our readers and viewers, can you tell us a little about Billy the Kid, your journey and how you got to where you are?
I went on a plane and I flew from originally Canada, and I was just in Nashville yesterday. I make up songs. People call me Billy the Kid.
And is Billy short for something?
It's just a nickname that stuck. I was always the youngest person in my band, so they would call me the Kid. And I'm not as young as I once was, but people still call me the Kid.
And how about your musical journey?
What would you like to know?
Oh, how did it start? Why are you where you are now?
Why am I where I am? I just like making stuff. I have a new record coming out with Frank Turner, who's from here. Yeah, I grew up playing in punk rock bands. This is the fourth kind of like solo acoustic thing. Yeah.
And your new album, Horseshoes and Grenades?
Horseshoes and Hand Grenades.
Hand Grenades. Where'd you get the name?
It's kind of a nod to the idea of luck and destruction. It's an old-timey saying, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And I was thinking about it with this idea of like being on the verge of something, not really knowing what. I was independent for most of my life as a musician, and I'd put out my own records on my own indie label in Canada, just because I love doing it for the love of creating. This was the first time that I really had any help, so that's the luck part. But at the same time, like I'll always be the same kid that wants to be the master of my own domain. So it's kind of a mesh of both worlds, the lucky and the self-destructive.
I always think life needs an element of luck for success, and I'm assuming you're talking about Frank Turner, is that right?
Yeah, maybe a bit. I mean, when you walk out your front door some days, you really never know where you're going to end up. And I think when you grow up in punk rock and you're just trying to like make art and be creative, you're not really thinking about the end goal. So all this is a real surprise. I really never thought I'd be sitting most places that I end up. So that's the lucky part, I guess, is that every once in a while I get to do this for kind of like a job, for lack of a better word. And it's kind of in a weird way the byproduct of my own, the darker side of me. So there's a light and a dark in it all.
And the music on the album, both lyrically and musically, where have those influences come from?
I mean, I grew up listening to like Nirvana. I was a product of the 90s, and then later got into a lot of like the Canadian singer-songwriters, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, the band. So musically, that's the foundation, if those two worlds even mix. But also, I was a teenage runaway. I was a foster kid. I left home when I was super young. Started kind of booking my own tours and booking, basically any chance I could get to play or leave town. So it's the sound of that. It's the sound of like trying to find your own way, making up the rules as you go along, not really following many of them.
So are you still intended on running, or are you going to stay around?
I kind of feel like the running and the journey is the destination at this point. It's been so many years of going around places and just constantly moving that it's strangely familiar, and it feels like home to be on the road.
Yeah, I get that. What was it like working with Frank Turner?
It was oddly enough pretty normal. Like I kind of forgot a lot of the time that he's pretty well known over here. It felt normal. It was just the three of us, him and I and his drummer Nigel, standing in a room. We did the whole thing in 10 days. Yeah, it was fun. We laughed a ton. We disagreed about maybe one or two things, but then laughed about that. It all happened really fast. So, it wasn't our first time in a studio. So, we made more music than we did speak about music, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you've got a few dates in the UK. Then you've got some dates in Europe. Is that to promote the album, or is there something else behind that?
Yeah, I guess so. The album's out September 8th, and then the shows overseas are with Billy Bragg, who I'm a huge fan of. But yeah, you know how it goes. Rinse, repeat. Just keep the train moving. Hopefully, play wherever people let me. I'm excited for the new album, though. I feel like it's a combination of like where I came from and the last couple albums. If that makes any sense, a little bit like still punk rock, but also like folk, singer-songwriter, and real. And it was just fun.
And the Billy Bragg tour, I mean, that's quite a long tour, isn't it? A couple of months or something?
No, it's about a month, not even.
Right. Have you worked with Billy Bragg before?
I've never met him. I can't wait. When I was a kid, the guy that recorded all our first punk rock albums used to make me mixtapes as his way of kind of like producing me, because he knew I wouldn't listen to anybody, I think. So he made this one tape where I think in New England was the last song, and I would fall asleep with my arm around my ghetto blaster and just rewind this one song over and over again. And I was convinced that him and I were going to fall in love and write political songs and live happily ever after. And it wasn't until I saw him for the first time in Vancouver that I realized he was a little bit older than me, and my heart was crushed. I really realized it might not work out.
Well, maybe something might happen on tour, you never know.
Well, from what I hear, he's absolutely charming, and he's just a really good person. So I think if you surround yourself with good people, nothing really can go wrong, even if it does.
And your fan base in the UK, how do you find that? Is it big enough yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been big enough for me, because when I'm at home and making the thing, that's the reward. So all of this is a bonus in a weird way. So if there's one person, that's great. If there's 10, that's even better. But I'm not like, I don't have an abacus at home or like a chart of success, because I think if you just make something, then that's the success and that's the reward for me. But I'm super glad that I get to come back. Like, I think this is my 4th time this year, so that's something, I guess.
Well, that says a lot, to be fair. And I think because you like so much time on the road, what do you do to relax after a gig?
Well, it depends on the gig. After a gig, a lot of time it's just pack up, get to where you're going. Maybe you're driving to the next one, or you're going to wherever you're staying. And whenever I get a moment to myself, I'm always writing. Like, my favorite thing is if I have a hotel or a room or a backstage, I've got my book and I've got my guitar. 'Cause that's my watching television. That's my reading a book. It's just like playing songs.
And what's the process you go through when you write a song?
That's always different too. A lot of time I'll play the same riff or lick for a year, or I'll work over the same words for months before I get it. Sometimes I sit down in 5 minutes. It's like watching a movie, and I'm just writing the script down, a synopsis after reading a book or something. But when you try and do something every day, you're more open to possibilities. If that makes any sense. If you tried to paint a picture every day, you might figure out your process, but you'd also be open to changing it up. You know?
You can't force your creativity.
Yeah, there is a bit of work involved, and you have to kind of, I think, approach it from both ways. But yeah, just sitting down is the hardest part. Sitting down to get started is the hardest part.
And if you could spend 10 minutes in a lift with anyone, who would it be?
I'm a really big Ryan Adams fan, so I would say Ryan Adams.
For what reason?
It would be so entertaining, because he's completely insane, and I mean that with the best of intentions. We actually met once. He came to the studio when I was making my last record with a guy that had done a couple of his records, and in the 10 minutes that he was there, he wrote like 3 songs on 2 different guitars, and I was just sitting there just amazed by, he just doesn't stop. So I'd love to be trapped in a room with him, to just watch him go and then see what happens when he winds down, because everybody calms down eventually. So yeah.
Very cool. Have you got a message for your fans in the UK?
Thank you. I hope to see you soon.
Cool. Billy, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you luck on the tour and the album.